Welcome to another Turnbuckle Trash Talk very special interview. One might say the absolute best interview we're going to have. I am your officiant, Kent. Joining me is the absolute best, Hunter Law. Hunter, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. We've been supposed to do this for a while now, so I'm glad we were able to do it today.
Yeah, we were able to hook it up, and I'm happy for that. Now, let's go back to the very, very beginning. Let's talk about Hunter, the child, or Hunter, the infant. I don't know when you first got introduced to wrestling. When was that?
Yeah, it always amazes me when people are able to tell you their very first wrestling memory. I don't have a very first wrestling memory. As long as I can remember, it's been wrestling. You know, I've been obsessed with it since my memory starts, So yeah, I wish that I had that one moment that I knew was the turning point, but just from day one, it's been wrestling my whole life,
No, me too. And I was raised watching wrestling with my grandpa, and I have a distinct memory of watching WrestleMania 5. But before that, I know it was there, but like you, I can't remember the point that it happened. Yeah. So what was it about wrestling that called to you or still calls to you to this very day that makes you still be a fan, makes you do this?
Man, when you're wrestling, it's sometimes it's hard to get lost in it. But even to this day, I'll get lost in matches, even like old matches that I've seen 1,000 times. I'll see something, I'm like, oh wow, that's why I'm so into this right now. It's just, man, it's so cool. I wish I could find the words to describe how it makes me feel, but wrestling is just, it's everything to me, man. Like watching Shawn Michaels and Edge, those are my two guys growing up. When Shawn got hurt, Edge immediately filled that role, and then when they came back, it was cool because then both my guys, one on SmackDown, one's on Raw, and then I got to go to a live event, a Raw, and Shawn wrestled Edge in a street fight in the main event, and I was like, this is everything, man. It was so cool. It's just, I love it.
Well, I see a lot of Shawn and Edge in your style, in the way you do it. So what is it about them specifically that called to you? Like, was there something in their personality and their move set and what they could do, in the fact that you have like a similar body type? Like, what was it?
I think Shawn's just so exciting when he wrestles, and the way you never have a match of Shawn Michaels where the crowd's not completely invested in it. Even at the beginning, if the crowd's not completely invested in it, by the end, they're all going to be on their feet. And I love stuff like that. I love sometimes, it's a challenge for me when I wrestle in new places and I come out, there's no crowd reaction. I love it because I'm like, ooh, okay, by the end, I'm going to have them people going crazy. And then by the end, if they're going crazy, it's the best feeling in the world. And then, Edge, what the cool thing about Edge to me, watching him, is like he's a mastermind of reversals and then bringing him back around and then hitting it, and then it's just, man, he's a mad scientist when it comes down to it.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the thing with the no reaction and stealing it by the end. Just this last week, probably not the time that this airs, but just this last week, you were on Real Pro facing Snoop Strikes and came out to almost zero reaction. Now, I was fortunate enough to ref that match, and I knew that by the end you guys were going to steal the show, and you absolutely did. So talk a little bit more about that, like, is it a disappointment to come out to no reaction? Is it a frustration? Because you'd worked with Real Pro before. You were their tag champions right before you got hurt. It's almost, was it frustrating to think that maybe the crowd forgot about you and you needed to remind them, or was there some excitement in that?
No, it's cool. But that was a new venue, so there was a lot of new fans, and there was a lot more fans on this one. So I think it was just a new audience and stuff. And over there, it honestly, depending on who I'm wrestling, I'll either be, I'll be a piece of crap, or maybe I'll be the good guy, the underdog, But so yeah, it doesn't bother me at all, because I know what I planned on doing. I believe in myself. I believe in my work. And then you knew it. But I mean, I walked out and I was smiling because there was no reaction. And I knew by the end of it, when I eventually won that match, and when the bell rang, when the 3 count happened, they all were booing and going crazy. So it was pretty awesome. That's more satisfying to me than when I walk out and they're all reacting, because it makes it much easier. I like a challenge. I like stuff like that.
Yeah, you won over a whole new generation or a whole new audience of Hunter Law fans and followers with that performance. So you're in Louisiana. You're a child, lifelong wrestling fan. You don't know when it started, obviously at the very beginning. When was there a distinct moment or time when you said, this is what I'm going to do, this is going to be my life? Like, what was it? Was there that aha moment that I'm going to do this?
Yeah, so I I got accepted into college. I was gonna go to college after I graduated and stuff, and then to be able to afford college, I needed to get a part-time job or whatever. So I went to like a grocery store or something. I saw like a little advertisement for a wrestling show, and then you flip the thing on, and there was a wrestling school, and it was Rodney Mack and Jazz's wrestling school. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm doing this. So then I contacted him. I found out the price and everything. So I had to eventually get a job to be able to afford it. So I got a job, paid for training myself, which went train and everything. And then school, I was just like, this is not really for me, man. And then so I decided maybe instead of wasting all this money on college, maybe I should venture out and become a pro wrestler, really, like actually give it a shot. Eventually, things with the original school, the building fell through and all that stuff. So I was just kind of just partying and all that stuff, doing the young adult thing, and so I went to WrestleMania 30, man, and watching the Daniel Bryan story and the whole thing, the way it culminated. I was like, okay, I need to get off my ass. Like, I need to do something about it. So pulled up the old Google machine and Googled wrestling schools and stuff, and then found out Jay Lethal has a wrestling school, and I don't think there's anyone better at professional wrestling training than that man, because he really set me up for success. But so decided to move out here without knowing a single soul, and there you have it.
So that was the decision that brought you to Florida, or was it school that brought you to Florida? Like, what was it
It was WrestleMania 30, yeah. If I didn't go to WrestleMania 30, I probably wouldn't be here, man. It was just such a good feeling, dude. The feeling when Daniel Bryan won the title, I was like, I need to do this. Like, that was the turning point.
Well, and that was a huge moment in wrestling and for wrestlers, because you're talking about an underdog story that really can't be beat. I mean, maybe Rey Mysterio's World Heavyweight title win is kind of on that level, but this is Daniel Bryan, short, thin, not your typical heavyweight, not the typical Vince guy, as some might say. So we both trained with Jay Lethal, but I imagine we both had vastly different training experiences. I trained as a referee, you trained as a wrestler. Kind of talk about that a little bit. Well, what was it like training with Jay at the Lethal Academy?
Man, it was cool. Like, once he taught us the basics and stuff, a lot of time, like, he gave me a key almost within like a couple months of training, and it was right down the road from my apartment. So me and Troy Hollywood would go. There was a time when me and Troy Hollywood went like 14 days in a row without missing a single day, and we'd go in there and we'd practice all our basics. We'd have matches on the fly and everything, and like, man, Jay would come by and I would just wrestle Jay for 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes, an hour sometimes, just wrestling, and that was invaluable to what I can do now,
Well, now you also, it runs in the family, so to speak, but in an almost horizontal direction with your brother Brandon also wrestling. How has that affected your wrestling career? How has that affected your love of wrestling? Has it made it better? Has it made it more challenging? Is there a competition aspect between the two of you? Talk about that.
Yeah, I don't really think that there's a competition. I want him to do great, you know what I mean? And I was there helping train him as much as I possibly can, and seeing him like grasp it and learn it was kind of cool, and me being able to help. He's my older brother, but in wrestling I'm the older brother, so it's like I look out for him, I help him, I point him in the right direction. So it's kind of cool, it's kind of cool dynamic growing up. Like, he was the one looking out for me, and now I'm the one looking out for him. It's kind of cool.
So let's talk about your first match. Every wrestler I've ever talked to says their first match was probably their worst match. What were your feelings going into that match? How do you feel like it went? Who were you facing? Tell me all the details about that.
So the first match I had was an Uproar Battle Royal. it was my class, the whole class wrestled in a battle royal together, and with the winner, which I ended up being the winner, and my big prize was I get another match. So that other match was against Mason Ryan. So my first singles match was against Mason Ryan, who 10 months before I was watching from Access wrestling. He was wrestling Sami Zayn at Access, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then 10 months later, I'm standing across the ring from him, completely in over my head, you know. So it was a very eye-opening experience.
Now, from that first match, one of the matches that stick out in my mind is you versus Troy Hollywood at Future of Honor. What an incredible thing to see as someone who had just joined the school, had been training for like maybe a month at that point or 2 months. I go to this Ring of Honor show and I see two graduates from the same school opening the show in what ended up being one of the better matches on that show. What was that experience like? Like, that's a whole nother level of competition in comparison to the indies.
You know, it was an incredible honor, no pun intended, to wrestle for Ring of Honor, but the best part of it all was being able to wrestle, you know, pretty much my best friend in this business. You know, that was a cool experience for both of us, and now we'll always have that, knowing that we've wrestled each other on Ring of Honor, we've wrestled each other on the indies, we've wrestled each other in front of no people for hours and hours and hours. So that was very special to us. And then, you know, eventually maybe one day we'll look back on it and, like, you know, maybe wrestle on a even grander stage, you know, against each other. That would be cool. But yeah, it's just the beginning of the story, man. You know, you never know where it's going to go.
Now, I tend to get nervous still to this day walking through the curtain before a show starts or whatever the case is. Do you still feel that way? Do you get the butterflies? Do you get that excitement? Or, you know, is it just like, this is run-of-the-mill, I know it so well that I don't even think twice about it?
I definitely, I've had my fair share of injuries, so that kind of stuff kind of worries me sometimes, you know, but I don't necessarily get nervous as much as I'm ready to get out there. You know, I love performing, I love wrestling. I get antsy because I just want to get through the curtain and just go. You know, I'm ready to get out there. That's what I get more than nerves, I'd say.
Was there ever a time that you felt any kind of doubt, like, this isn't for me, I shouldn't do this, I need to go get a real job, like, what am I even doing this for? Was there ever any question during this process that maybe it's time to think about doing something else, or maybe this is just a hobby or something you do for fun? Has there ever been anything like that?
I wouldn't say doubts, you know, like after my second knee injury, like that one was pretty significant. That one was like, okay, maybe my body isn't made for this, you know, but I know my heart and my mind and stuff, it's completely into this. So I think my body would shut down before my heart and my mind would, you know. So yeah, there's really no doubt. Like, this is, I truly believe, like, this, I was put on this earth to do this. Like, this is what I was made to do. So I'm gonna keep doing it until the wheels fall off, you know.
So what was the easiest thing that you found in becoming a wrestler? What was the thing that you picked up on quickest, or that you found like, this isn't a challenge?
Well, that's hard to say. You know, everything's kind of a challenge in wrestling. You know, nothing ever comes easy. That's a good question, man. I think the technical aspect of wrestling is fascinating. I love learning new things like that. But yeah, I don't know what naturally came easy to me, because I've always just worked extremely hard to get good at this, you know?
So what was the most challenging part of becoming a wrestler? Some say it's the character work, some say it's the in-ring, some say it's promos. Like, what did you find to be your biggest challenge or the most difficult part of becoming a wrestler?
So I think the most difficult challenge, and even to this day, is coming out of my shell. You know, I've always been, you know, kind of quiet. I'm a chill guy, you know. That's my natural demeanor. So in wrestling, you got to be kind of larger than life. You gotta be loud and vocal. I'm not a very loud guy, you know. That's I think the most challenging thing for me, is reminding myself, okay, you need to, you know, you need to be a little bit larger than life. You know, you need to come out of your shell a little bit more. And sometimes even to this day, I have to remind myself, you know, you gotta, you know, be bigger, make everything bigger. That's kind of the I think for me the most challenging thing.
So, do you keep up still with the WWE product? Like, what do you think about the landscape in WWE right now? Do you think that it's getting better? Do you think it's getting worse? I mean, it's definitely changed since my favorite era, the Attitude Era, and even from the Rock and Roll Wrestling era. What do you think right now of the state of wrestling on the grand stage?
Yeah, man, I think wrestling is, I think it's on fire right now, man. A lot of people complain that, the shows are too long or everything like that. But, dude, for me, I don't get it because I want more wrestling. I want wrestling on every day of the week. The more wrestling I can watch, the better. I love it. So I always don't understand sometimes the fans are complaining like, oh, the shows are too long. These guys aren't getting a push or whatever. Who cares, man? Just enjoy the show. That's but I think wrestling's on fire right now, man. I love it. The action is so great, and the bar is just being raised constantly. And I look at guys even on the indies, guys like Serpentico, guys like Jay Rios, God, they're just going crazy, man. It's like I want to be doing what they're doing. It's crazy, man.
So they say in wrestling, you never stop learning, whether it's, continuing to train or with every match, with every loss, with every win, with every promo. What would you say about that? Like, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward sentiment, but talk a little bit more about that.
What do you mean? Wait.
Like that you never stop learning in wrestling. Like, go into more detail about that. Do you feel like every match you're still learning, every move, every whatever? Just talk about it.
Yeah. So that's why I think Proving Ground is so great. We have shows every Wednesday night here, and this has helped me so much grow as a performer, and it helped me in all aspects of my game because if I want to try something, I'll come here and I'll try it. Bam. And if it works here, maybe it'll work somewhere else. So if I do something and it works here and then I go to Georgia and I try the same thing and it doesn't work there, then it's okay. It's back to the drawing board. Why didn't it work there? Why was the crowd reacting to this? Why was the crowd reacting to that? What do they like? So that's what's cool about it because you never know what they're going to buy into, So it's That's for me the cool thing about wrestling is that the audiences are all different. Like Mayhem on Mills is a crazy crowd. They love the action, they love that stuff. But if I go out and if I try to do the same thing here, it may not work because you got to keep it maybe more simple for some crowds, or things like that. It's interesting.
So you talked about Shawn Michaels and Edge being inspirations kind of for you specifically. Let's talk more about the Hunter Law character now, the gimmick, if you will. What was the inspiration behind that? What drew you to it? How did you shape it? What would you say is different about it from a Shawn Michaels or from an Edge? What was it that created this character for you?
Yeah, man. So I don't really necessarily see myself as a character. I try to keep in mind of how I would react to certain situations, and maybe I'll turn that up a little bit, or when I used to be a real scumbag, I'll look for things that I don't like in people, and then I'll just be that, you know what I mean? So that's the kind of cool thing, man. It's always evolving, so you never know what I'm gonna do, So that's what's cool about wrestling, is because you can be anything you want to be, and you can be whoever you want to be. You just gotta make that message known,
If you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's interested in becoming a wrestler or even just getting involved with wrestling at all, what would you tell them?
Okay, I'll give two things right here. In wrestling, you got to give it 100%. You got to give it your whole heart, everything. You'll get what you put into it, And then the second thing is just have fun, dude. Wrestling's supposed to be fun. Don't worry about, a lot of people worry about winning titles or getting pushes. This stuff doesn't matter. You wanted to be a wrestler your entire life, and now you're a wrestler. Enjoy it. Enjoy the moment because, dude, I've been seriously injured. It's been taken away from me. So I know that the time that I have wrestling, I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can. And that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give people because it can end tomorrow. You never know when things are going to end for you. So just have fun while you're doing it, man. That's it.
So I like to put people on the spot with this question. If you could change one thing about wrestling, whether it's backstage, whether it's up front, whether it's the fans, whether it's, the locker room, whatever it is, if you could change one thing about it, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question, man. Man, I gotta sit down and think about that. The one thing that I would change about wrestling is that, dude, you might have me stumped here. You got me on the spot, man. I don't really like this, Kim.
Well, I will say this. A lot of the female performers would say, make an intergender wrestling a thing. Or a lot of guys will say, like, pay us better or whatever the case is, or maybe less backstage politics or maybe, less of an old school style in the locker room of the veterans kind of bullying the new guys. Like, anything like that. Is there anything about even those things that I mentioned that stands out?
Yeah, I guess I would wish that all the boys and girls would be able to live off of this, and because a lot of people aren't, and they're sacrificing their lives, their bodies, everything, and their futures to do what they love. And it'd be cool if everyone could make a living off of this. Unfortunately, that's not the reality of the situation. But I think that would probably be the one thing I would change.
Well, WrestleMania 36 is coming to Tampa. It should be a big show. There should be a lot of shows around it. What are your goals come WrestleMania 36?
Man, I'm going to have the time of my life. WrestleMania 36. My goals, I'll keep those a little bit close to the vest. But let's just say by the end of that weekend, you will know exactly who Hunter Law is, and you will know exactly who OAO is.
So now's the time where I ask everybody to kind of push anything they want to push, promote anything they want to promote. Social media, upcoming shows, maybe not in the next week or so, but after that, like what would you like to promote?
Let's see, the things I would like to promote would be Troy Hollywood, Danny Vincent, Snoop Strikes, and Aria Blake. Check them out.
All right, well, Hunter, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'm sure there's going to be a part 2, and we'll keep watching where it goes from here.